Maclise painted the Waterloo painting starting about 1860, and he was quite new to waterglass painting, and therefore he asked for a fairly smooth plaster. He found though that it was quite difficult to make the pigment stick to that, and therefore by the time he came to painting the Trafalgar painting in about 1863, he asked for a much more granular plaster to allow the pigment to stick better. That was in fact a great success. The difficulty we now have is that since then the paintings have been treated very differently under the various conservation programs in the last 100 years. On Waterloo we have to take a delicate conservation approach because of the repaint and various other factors, whereas on Trafalgar, where there's a lot more wax on the surface and less repaint, we're able to be more robust in our treatment.
We're slowly working our way down through many layers of coatings that have been applied at various stages of the painting's life, and we're slowly working our way back to Maclise's original surface. His technique was aimed at creating a monumental matte wall painting. We're searching our way down through the layers to try and reveal that original aspiration of Maclise's to have this monumental, beautiful wall painting.
When the modern resin coating comes off, it reveals this blanched previous coating, which is several coatings mixed up together, but predominantly wax. When the wax is melted, it resaturates the surface, which means that the colours and the clarity of the image are revealed, and also Maclise's original matte surface is much recovered by the process.
There are a number of historic cracks running vertically down both of the paintings. They've been treated in the past, so they have been previously filled and repainted. The fill material is now failing in a number of areas, so if you look here, you can see they're reopening, and additionally the repaint no longer matches. And so we need to remove that and redo those areas. The first thing we do is use a solvent gel to remove the overpaint that's there. To remove the fill itself, we are able to soften it using water. Then using a sharp implement, scalpel, something like this, we're able to reduce it in between the original surface without damaging any of the original plaster and dig out some of that material. And then we are refilling the cracks using material that's compatible with the original. It's a lime and sand plaster. We're using slightly different material for each of the two paintings because we'd like to match the surface topography. The Waterloo painting has a much smoother finish to it, and the Trafalgar has a rougher surface, so we're using different sized sand to match those two. The fills dry to this sort of white appearance in about 24 hours or so, giving the lime time to calcify. The next step would be to reintegrate these white fills to the original surface by repainting them. And we're using conservation grade paints. The color won't alter with time, and they will remain reversible. It's a slow process. It's quite difficult. And what I'm actually doing is stippling in the paint and layering the paint with different colors to try to achieve an optical effect that's similar to the original. What makes me feel really great is coming back to painting and not being able to distinguish an area that I've treated.
We're about a year and a half into the process now. This is our fourth phase on site. They tend to be split up into 2 or 3 week phases. The last approach was in the 1960s by the Ministry of Works, now Historic England. They did a major project. Paintings then were much darker than they were now even. This because there were something like 6 layers of wax covering both surfaces. They reduced using some fairly toxic chemicals which we don't like to use now. The difference is they used repair material that wasn't exactly compatible with the lime plaster of the original painting. They used repaints that were oil repaint in effect, or alkyd repaint, which darkens over time and becomes more insoluble. We benefit from major scientific analysis, technical analysis, treatment tests. We can spend much more time doing it than they were allowed then, and that's a huge benefit for us.
I first had an overview over the paintings and then went into microscopic detail to see how and what material was applied onto the paintings. This was combined with a lot of archival research, and with all this together we're now able to tell which and where the materials had been applied in the past and how they affect the paintings today.
We have ultraviolet imaging as opposed to visible light imaging. These can be compared and they do show up very well the previous damages and the coatings.
At the moment I'm working at the very top of Trafalgar, where Nelson has been shot, working in amongst the masts, sails and rigging. We can see here the words de redoutable, which is the French ship that Nelson was doing battle with at the time. And I'm just working away, disguising some of the damage and loss that has happened over the course of the history of the paintings. I'm always impressed by the quality of Maclise's paintings in terms of the draftsmanship and the accuracy of his observations about people and the action that's happening here, in this case with the death of Nelson. The detail really takes you into the scene, and working on a day-to-day basis with that, you really get up close to all these characters that are in the painting, really looking at them face to face and kind of being taken back in history, and a real connection with both Maclise and the figures that he's represented in the paintings.
Well, after this stage, well, we obviously continue with the treatment. That is important. The other aspect is lighting of the paintings. That's a crucial aspect of the whole project. We know that the current lighting situation, which is quite yellow-brown lights, are not doing the paintings any favours whatsoever. We do need specific lighting that will cut through the residues of coating on the surface and bring out the vibrant colours of the original, which are slightly masked at the moment, mainly through bad lighting.